Thanks everyone for joining Office Hours. If you haven't done this before, we rock these same time, same place, pretty much every 2 weeks. Keep an eye out on the events channel for the announcements. Usually we do a vote on Tuesday on topics for what to cover that Thursday leading into it. This week, we had covered a lot of kind of been working through the list that we'd been working on, and we didn't have a lot of new big topics to hit, but so we didn't really do the vote, and we've at times done this before as well, where we just kind of like push a topic that the team wants to talk about. And, I think one of the things that is we spend a lot of time on, especially Tritium spends a lot of time on and has been very helpful for the DAO and for the team and just for building product overall, has been the work that we're doing with Gitcoin and just grants in general. And I think we're going to kind of roll that conversation into, kind of an update on what we've been doing with Gitcoin, what we do with Gitcoin, the relationship there, how it's benefited the DAO, the team, and the product. And then I think, we're going to maybe roll in a little governance 2.0 stuff, but I guess we'll see where we go. Tritium, you've been on these before. We usually just kind of do the spiel to kick it off for a bit. Throw out whatever you want to throw out. If you want to hop up and chat after that initial rundown, go for it. We'll be here for an hour. We'll just kind of stay on topic. And then if we peter out on that topic, we'll go back and touch on anything anyone else wants to chat on for the rest of the hour. If you don't want to speak verbally, feel free just to hop in the Office Hours discussion channel, a couple channels above this in the Discord, toss questions in there. We'll just keep keeping an eye on it and crank through. So without further ado, Tritium, floor is yours.
Okay. So I've been trying to write something since June, I think, about how the team is growing and like what's going on in tech, right? And I think I actually did write something in the middle of June that was supposed to go out, but there was just so much else going on, and so it didn't go out. And then I've been trying to find the time to write something recently, but I never do. So I figured I'd talk about it a little bit and tie it in with all this Gitcoin stuff, and then maybe people will know stuff and it will inspire me to write it. So, I kind of want to maybe tell the story of how I came into the core team, because I think it's interesting and it leads into all of this stuff, right? So I showed up, I think, on the day that Badger launched with my airdrop and, doing the thing, was in Discord. And I think anybody that was there will remember, it was a bit of a shit show, right? We didn't do our first cycle for 18 hours. And for a while you had to use Etherscan to stake, and there's an airdrop and it showed 5 million APY because nobody could get in, and there was a lot of excitement. So I got really into that and kind of just stuck to Badger ever since then. And I come from a DevOps background. And so I started kind of trying to help out with the AWS accounts and a lot of this kind of operations and automation that goes behind the tech stuff. And then kind of coming into, I guess, May, around that time, right? It was kind of getting to the point where we had hired a pretty strong, large ops team, right? So we had a lot of ops people, and there were actually really not that many engineers, right? And so what ended up happening is there was a lot of need for work being churned up, right? And then very few people kind of running around in the background trying to make it all happen, right? And so one of the things that Spotted put his hand down and said is man, we really just need to not hire any more ops people, right? Until we get that ratio right, until we've got more engineers. So then it was kind of okay, well, what do we need and how do we find it? And at that time also, I don't know how many of you were around in April and May, but that was kind of this time where it was a real bull market. Our Discord was really I don't know, it almost felt toxic, everybody was kind of oh, team this, team that. There was a lot of negative resentment towards the team ruminating on our Discord, and then our team was kind of hiding because they were really busy, and coming down to deal with that just didn't work, right? And so there was this divide. And so I was really trying to, at this point, deal with two things, right? First, we need more engineers. And second of all, we've got 30,000 people that really care about this product that are over here kind of ranting about how things should be, and a team that's overwhelmed, right? Scrambling to try to make something happen, and everybody's avoiding each other. So we started doing bounties, right? I started posting bounties. I started saying hey, and it started on the Discord, we'll pay for something. And I think the first ones were maybe like a long, long time ago, like cookies, we started doing this thing around this community rewards thing, right? And we were going to try to use like source cred, and we spent like months trying to figure it out, and it never came clear. And it's like, oh, we're going to get grants. So I started working with all these engineers, and then it was like really hard to like pay them or to actually move them in, because the process we had in place for like agreeing to pay contributors and then further like for like bringing people into the team was like really kind of like rigid and stuck, and like nothing was getting through. So on May 3rd, I think I posted this bit for 3,000 Badger for a bounty program, right? And the point was, and there's a little bit of contention, but the point was like, we just need some amount of funding to like get out there and get these people that are like passionate about Badger and passionate about what we're doing to start like adding productive work, right? Instead of like complaints and criticism. And so for the first little while, we were posting this on the dashboard, right? And I think like some of the first bounties that came up, I'm trying to actually pull up that list real quick, but like, I mean, let me put it another way. Through those bounties, like we've managed to like hire a lot of great people, right? So like Cookies started again, like even before this, like with this community rewards thing, right? And then he started like his first bounty was actually the price bots, right? And then he kind of slowly like moved into the team. We formed the bot squad. He's now running Harvest. Like when we released both IBBTC and the Badger Bridge, we put out bounties to build like a dashboard for both of them, right? And like Petrovska wrote one of them and Gosoto wrote the other one, and they're actually both onboarding onto our core team now, right? So like through these bounties, we've actually found a lot of great developers. And then, Spada called me up one day, and as I was moving towards the core team and I was kind of joining, and he said, like, look, we've given all this money to Gitcoin, and we kind of have this relationship with them, but we're like deeply underutilizing it, right? Like there's tons of money there, there's tons of credit, like they've got all the tooling to do this, and we should use it. And I kind of said like, yeah, okay, like their interface is painful to me, right? So I'm going to avoid it for a little while, but eventually it's like, okay, let's try that. So then, like I guess the first few Gitcoin hackathons we did, it was always kind of just like, like Poe wrote them. It was like a very general honeypot, like do something interesting that has something to do with like Badger, Bitcoin, DeFi. And so like I started trying to like, okay, like let's actually take some stuff that we need to do and put them in the hackathons, right? And let's start posting bounties on Gitcoin. So I think the first hackathon that we actually did that with was the Open DeFi hackathon, where we basically just ran a bounty to write some strategies, right? And maybe a few others. And then Alex, the entrepreneur, actually wrote a really nice strategy, and we looked at it, and there were like 3 or 4 other strategies that we all said to review. So everybody looked at it. We were like, this is definitely like the best strategy, right? Like, cool. We know he wins, but then we've got to figure out the rest out. And everybody was like way super busy, right? So I jumped into our dev Discord and I said, hey, like, does anybody want to review? We know Alex is going to win. Does anybody want to review the rest of these strategies? And so like Alex very quickly put his hand up and said, well, I'll review the rest of the strategies. We had a little conversation. Is this a conflict of interest? It was like, no, he already won. So then he ended up doing that too, right? And I guess where I want to get to is that like what we've learned and where we're going, and I think over time, is that like the best people that we find are the people that come through these hackathons, because working at Badger isn't like working at a normal company, right? Like there's not a lot of clarity about what you do. There's like too many things going on. Like people have to be able to like take ownership, drive something through to completion, right? Keep enough blinders on to like not get too distracted, but also be like aware enough of the environment around them not to just like crash and burn into oblivion because there's too much moving, right? So it's kind of like hitting a moving target, right? Yeah, it's tricky. And so I think, and Alex actually also pointed this out, right? But I think what we realized is that, when we post slightly crappy bounties on Gitcoin, like do this, and we don't really provide quite enough scope, and we don't really make it clear what needs to happen, but we do include a link to our dev Discord, right? The sorts of people that come in, ask questions, engage in our code, engage in our community, submit good bounties, right, are exactly the sorts of people that like are going to be successful on our team. And I think, yeah. And so basically since we started, I think, doing this, we've hired Alex Gusoto, Petrovska cookies. There might be. Is there anyone else that's coming through the bounty program? Oh, Mother Fodder, who just joined. So yeah, we're building this like really competent tech force that are like all here, not because like we went out and looked for them or because we wrote some job description, right? But his whole point is there's like no other industry in the world where people are willing to like pay you so much money to learn, right? And I think when Badger launched, there was this awareness of like we need to bring people in, right? We need to bring builders in so that this can move, and so that there's not like 12 DAOs fighting for like 3 competent strategists. And so yeah, like we're doing that. I think Gitcoin is a great way to do it. I think like this Gitcoin, we've kind of doubled down, right? So like this Gitcoin, we're not running as many like funny, like, oh, just do something bounties, but we have about, I think like over 100K in bounties, like to do real work that Badger needs done. And if it's done well and it works out, like we will integrate. And then there's like another $250,000 that's going towards like matching. And so through this, I think like we're doing some of the most important work in DeFi right now, right? Which is like bringing people in and teaching people what it's about and exploring new ways of like building teams and getting work done and finding people. And so, yeah, I guess that's kind of my shtick. And I guess I'm wondering if anybody has any questions, if anybody else that has been kind of engaged in this experience wants to like comment on it. Anybody that has maybe participated. I've seen a lot of people here that I know who've taken part in bounties, right? If anybody wants to talk about that experience, if anybody has feedback about how that could be better, that would all be cool. And then I maybe in a little while, I've also got some questions about staffing, right? So there's some positions that we need to find people for that I don't know how to write a bounty for. And I'm not quite sure how to do it. And so at the end, if we've got time, maybe we could think about how we do that.
Yes, if anyone wants to pop up, throw your hand up. I'm hoping we would be able to see that and process it. Will, are you able to get back up here? We disappeared. But yeah, I mean, I'll comment a little bit from my perspective. For me, kind of, I guess, earlier on the core team, yeah, it was a bit of a mess, especially when we did the initial kind of group of people officially joining the team, and all of it gets a little hairy when you're trying to like over engineer it by like finding the right people, finding the right skills, put them together. And it was really early then, so we didn't even really know exactly what we needed. We were just kind of playing catch up, trying to get make sure the vaults were still working, get dig dropped, things like that. We weren't doing anything near the level of new product development that we're doing now, and it was unclear kind of what we needed. So we had someone kind of focusing on grants, but we didn't know what we even really wanted to do with those grants, and the process didn't really work, and we didn't really know what we were putting. We didn't realize the amount of effort it was going to take to actually like effectively handle not just grants of people doing work directly, but also like leveraging the relationship we have with Gitcoin to the best of our ability. And I think initially it was kind of like, all right, let's get people in, we'll see their skills, we'll pay them for a couple months, and yada yada yada, we'll do all that, and then if they stick around and are good, like after X number of months, then they can join the team. And it was just way too structured and not tied down in, I guess, how people want to work in reality, and shifting towards this model of focusing on actual specific bounties to execute, and then more project based. And if it takes a couple months of someone doing projects and then they want to join the team, or if they do it in a couple weeks, and it was great. It's just such an easier thing to look at and say, hey, look, this person crushed it. They want to join the team, which is not a insignificant thing. It's a unique type of person that is willing to kind of, whether they're already full-time crypto or are willing to kind of leave whatever normal job that they're doing, or at least we don't know if everyone's left their normal jobs, but yeah, assuming to go all in, it's not a small decision to make on their end either. But I think to your point, like the people that are willing to put some upfront work in and not necessarily have guaranteed pay for it because they might be competing with other folks to win a certain bounty, like that's just proven to be a great way to find the people that we want. And I'll talk a little bit to the non-technical side. Not everything that we put out there is just for developers. I mean, there's generally technical components, but there's things that we are looking for that's like, financial analysis, other things like that. And then, I think we've had some design ones, and I think it's definitely something that we're kind of pushing to do more of going forward. But obviously, the core of what we do is technical, so that's been, and it's the easiest to kind of judge. Not that any of that's easy, but it's definitely been the focus. But I think to your point is we've got a much better system now for processing people through.
And just to that point, like what I would say, what's really interesting to me is like when you look at like Yearn, for example, right? Like they've got a few strategists, they like pay their strategists these fees. It's like, like strategist is God, and they create this culture of like the guru strategist that knows all, right? And because they're like leading yield farming, I think at least in the yield farming industry, we've kind of fallen into this like, like experienced dev worship mode, right? Like for me, I actually got into DeFi like when Corona started because I thought like the world was or money was gonna fall apart, and it seemed interesting, right? So I'm also pretty new to this, and like I can tell you, the reality is that like for somebody with like good technical skills or a strong analytical mind, right, that like knows how to write some like SQL queries and knows how to like use, as a power user at Google Sheets, or can do like really good, is a pretty decent like full stack developer, right? Like, like DeFi code is simple, right? Like we're basically doing like simple arithmetic in it, and like very simple operations. And this is not rocket science, right? Like you have to be very careful. There has to be a lot of reviews. It's new. The tooling sucks. So you spend a lot of time like trying to figure out how to get something to do your simple stuff. But I think one of the things that we've realized is that like if we're not just looking for people that already know DevOps, that already work in crypto, that already work in DAOs, right? That then there's actually tons of like brilliant analytical people, and it doesn't take very long at all, right, to get to a pretty good sense of most of this stuff, right? And we definitely need and we have like we've got DApp. We need some of these like the people that really know this stuff, so that when people are, doing something stupid or making like one of the mistakes that everyone knows in the industry knows you shall never make, there's somebody to point it out. But like that's been like a super realization for us, I think, right? And it really enables us to find like very different talent. And then I think to John's other point, right, the issue then is that you're looking for people to kind of like quit their stable, cushy day job, where they've got insurance and like a regular salary and stuff, right? Or and enjoying this like totally weird thing, right? Or end up like moonlighting in a startup that takes like 10 hours, like Wes is doing right now, right? In a startup that takes like 10 hours a day, while you're also working in another job that takes like 10 hours a day. And so it is tricky. I guess the point is, I think one of the other things that like was the case before is we were real concerned about like the value that we were getting out of the money that we were paying to new people that came in the door, right? So like as people were new in the first time they were coming in, there was a lot of focus of like, is this, like, are we getting our value, and is this a good deal? And like, are we overpaying? And like, we were spending an incredible amount of time thinking about like differences in reasonably small sums of money, right, for people that were coming in and doing new stuff, while the core team was kind of just making money. And like, there was never any question about that whatsoever, right? And I think one of the things that I said, and I think we finally got to, is like, like we allocated like 20% of our token to like this developer fund, right? And that was about building developers, bringing developers, like building the development community, right? And so that's not about like extracting value on every bounty we put out right away, right? That's about creating interest and knowledge and bringing minds in and towards us, right? And it's kind of more like, let's spend a lot of money on like the broad end of the funnel, right? So that then whenever we're kind of looking for talent, instead of having to go wide, we've got like a bunch of people that like have been paid well by us, right? Have like taken that extra 8 hours to like do this beside their day job. We're like rewarded for it, are looking for new work. Maybe they've done a few bounties. They're in our Discord, they're chatting with us, and it's like, hey, like you're doing this now, so like let's hire you, right? And it's cool. And I do think like that's a lot of what it is, though, is about like being, to a certain extent, like generous and open, right? And like putting these bounties, like we put bounties out there that maybe we won't be able to like incorporate for a few months, right? Maybe it's just to get people involved and we'll never be able to use it. But creating that brain trust and that excitement in those minds and that engagement around us, right? Like is, I think, great for Badger and it's great for the space. And then for, again, going back to what John said, for non-technical people, if you have an analytical mind, if you can do SQL and you can do, Excel, like go look at Etherscan and you're interested in this stuff, like spend some time playing with Etherscan and really surf through that stuff, like, learn a little bit about Dune and learn how to like run queries around it. And you'll be surprised how quickly you can come to understand this stuff, right? And then on the other side of things, we're really trying to create more bounties for like totally creative people, right? So this hackathon, we've got this Badger intern bounty, which is basically about coming to all these meetings and paying attention to our Discord and like spamming Twitter with news and kind of just being the non-official voice of Badger. And then like there's a lot of this like work going on around the Badger NFTs that Vipe started, and we're not quite there yet, but like I'd love to get a pretty juicy bounty structured in the next day or two to like really prompt some like professional people to do cool like animated video trailers about it, right? And to really like spend a reasonable amount of money and or challenge people for a reasonable amount of money to come up with like some cool media on this stuff. So, and if you have any other ideas about like non-technical bounties that Badger could run that would particularly bring non-technical people that would add the sorts of things that we need into our fold, please reach out.
Yeah, and to your point about I think we focus a lot on the strategies, and that we had this whole like what do we call it, developer mining or something like that, where it's like, oh, you write a strategy and we implement it and we share the fees. And I think we realized like that just doesn't really work that way. People are just going to come out of thin air and then have a brand new strategy that just is great and we're going to implement it. There's so much review that we need to do to make sure it's safe. And then also like, obviously there are very intricate strategies and they can take a lot of effort to figure out how to do it efficiently and make it work. But, once it's out there and it's open source, anyone can fork it. And then also you can't just, code your way into yield. It has to exist. So I feel like, I look at it now as like these strategies and these strategy bounties are great ways that we're kind of testing developers and getting them in the fold and trying these things out. And then once they're kind of in, there's so much other stuff that we're doing around, trying to differentiate Badger a bit with, the stuff we're doing with IBBTC and some of the boost mechanics and, a lot of other, all the cross-chain stuff that we need to do. There's just a lot of other stuff for people to kind of work on once they get in the, get in the fold. But the strategies are a nice, way to kind of, break in.
Yeah, and there's a misalignment of interest, I think, like with the kind of Yearn style bounty, right? So like once a strategy is running, right? Like, and if you're splitting, let's say, so now we're splitting the performance fees 50-50 with a strategist, right? So we're splitting the strategist maybe as like 10 strategies running, maybe they're on a few platforms, they've got all this like income coming in, right? And then one of these strategies like stops working so well, right? For the strategist, it is like part of their income from like one of their income sources is going down because there's a problem with the strategy, right? For Badger, there's like a bunch of pissed off users. It's a huge reputational risk, right? Like we don't have these strategies yet, but particularly like if there's margin or if it needs maintenance, like there can actually be funds at risk, right? So like it somehow you're giving the strategist like this benefit without the incentive to really like maintain the thing or stay that engaged. And then you're encouraging the strategist to spread themselves as thin as possible in order to make the most money, right? But that kind of means that like in the end, like we don't have the support and maintenance that we need. And I think like we see that happening already, right? It's already the case. Like this convex harvest thing was a great idea, right? Nobody that was really involved in writing that strategy had all that much to do with solving the problem, right? There were other operational people that came in and like Petroska did most of the work, right? We analyzed the code, we proposed new changes. People that wrote the strategy reviewed it, right? But it wasn't, like because of the way that we're structuring ourselves, where it's not just like strategist is God, but we're really trying to work as a team, right? There's an ability for like certain people to go out and find new things and work, like write strategies and make it work. And then other people to go and keep it working. And we're still small enough that the information flows back and forth better, right? And then we're actually like functioning as a team more, which I think is like, to me, that's what makes Badger different, right? That's what makes Badger different than Urine. That's what makes Badger different than most of these things, is that we have a strong community. Like everybody that works for us came from the community, right? There's none of this few understand thing. Like we're really out to like enable everybody with us to move forward with us, right? And then that creates like this sense of team and the ability to get everything good out of that. And whether that's like in our team, like just as I was talking about before, like having people be able to like cover for each other, or whether that's things like the RFFs, right? Where now like we're coming into the community and we're talking to a bunch of people that understand Badger, that are super engaged in what we're doing and really care to like hash out how to build things better, right? And that's also like a form of like using community and team and like really the power of like decentralization and like these new ways of thinking and working. And to me, like what a DAO should be, to like be competitive in a sense and to like really like kick ass. And that like, that's kind of why I'm in it, right? That's the most exciting thing about all this for me.
Yeah, it's not always the easiest way to go about things, but I think it's been a lot more effective and it's a lot more interesting and fun for everybody. And like I said, pretty much everyone on the team came from the community, started in the community, whether it's just speaking up in the forums, executing on a bounty, executing on a something in Gitcoin, or a referral from someone else on the team, I guess. But that's pretty much everyone here, and it's really just been started with kind of being active, proving some value that you're bringing, and then kind of rolling in. So if I think the RFS, that's a good point to call out. If there's not, that's where a lot of the analysis stuff happens. We have some of the things in bounties, but keep an eye on those RFFs as they open up. And we're open. I'm trying to keep it under like 6 or 7 open at any time, but it seems like we're opening up another one every week or two. We're looking for direct feedback from the community, and a lot of folks, if you're engaging with us closely there, we'll work closely with you and we can see where it goes. If you're putting together a good analysis or you're contributing a lot, that's very helpful. It's hard to, given everything is so community focused and there's so many users and different types of users, and it's once you kind of deploy this stuff, it's really hard to kind of put back in the bag. There's a lot of stress to a lot of pressure to kind of do things right, and that's pressure on us on the economics and product team to kind of model things appropriately in a way that makes sense and be able to there's pressure on the dev team to make sure it's all safe and works as expected, on the UI team to make sure that when people are using the app, that stuff all makes sense, and on the marketing team to make sure that when we're launching it, people know what the hell the thing does. And all different areas we need feedback from the community on it. It helps a lot if we can do that as we're building, and not just, all right, let's launch this thing and then half the people hate it. And
deal with the clients.
You understand it.
So so the I guess, so how this relates to governance 2.0 is like what I have basically just told you all is that like we've hired a bunch of new people and that they're adding a lot of value, right? But I don't know, like in May, right? Like there was a BIP that went out every week or every month about like the contributors that we were paying, and like some of the core team members, like the first core team cohort was like voted in by a BIP, right? And we kind of just stopped doing that. And we stopped doing it because like that is a place where very often, there's already a lot of feedback, and like, involving the entire community in, your people processes is probably not like great. But we do need to be transparent about it, right? And it's bothered me for a long time that like we're here and like, and everybody, like nobody really knows what's going on anymore, right? And so a lot of what Governance 2.0 was about, or is about, right, is trying to create something in the middle to be aware of this stuff, right? And to provide the transparency to the community, right? And to kind of help decide what sorts of things, to agree with the statement that like we don't need to like have a community vote for like every time we pay anybody that does everything, or for some of our people stuff. But before, and so I think that's an interesting conversation. Before we go there, though, there's like a bunch of people here. I see them that have done hackathons that are somehow engaged in the team, that have joined the core team, right? Does anybody else want to get up and talk a little bit about your experiences kind of joining Badger, maybe with Gitcoin and in this general direction? And then maybe like we can talk a little bit more about governance 2.0 and get like other feedback maybe from the community about how we can like be more transparent and how we can do this like quickly without it itself becoming such a large conversation that nobody has time for it. So yeah, anybody like, I don't know, like Soto Cookies, is Petroskas maybe here? Anybody? I don't know, Uva, I see you here. You spent a bunch of time on that referral bounty. Does anybody want to talk about these experiences? We can move on, but it seems like it's an office hours. No, I'm talking too much.
It's always getting the first person up the hardest. Also, potential technical issues. I don't know if people are trying to put their hands up and we just can't see it.
Okay, do you want to talk about governance 2.0 a bit? And I'll go like past
I guess
Will.
yeah, we'll get Will up here. But we got Lips trying to. But yeah, I think to kind of weave it together, we had the initial kind of governance, through BIPs and in the token voting when it was Badger was all new and exciting, and the community was smaller and the team was smaller, and I think we got pretty good engagement in the forums, and that worked out pretty well, I think, in the beginning, and then we had to grow the team. So as you said, things got a little quiet there. I think it was like in March or something like that when we were team was pretty overwhelmed with the amount of work to do, and then I think like the token started going down in price and people got angry, and then the Discord was not as much of a fun place, and there was a lot of heads down just like trying to get stuff over the line. And that's kind of when you joined up, and we basically like said, all right, let's just junk everything that we're doing, bringing new people on, Tritium, cool, just get people in the door, and it's been great to do that. So now we've built up the team, we're getting our feet under us a little bit, but the community's grown, the team's grown, and the discussion, I think, if we were to go back to just like straight, BIPs and all the discussion in the forum, like it wasn't a very efficient way to go about things, especially now that we have more eyes, more well-informed eyes, and then, more people, BIPs coming in from all directions of the team. So the move that we're looking to make is, now that we have more people in the team, let's create more of a engagement, and more of a closer engagement with the community. Oh, we got Lip up. How'd that happen?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
You made it.
You made it. How did?
I don't know. I saw in the thread that Will was able to get me up here. So yeah, finish your thought, John, and then I'm happy to contribute too.
Yeah. So to kind of round it out, I think what we're looking at now is we're starting with just the RFF channels, which have been great, which is basically taking what had been happening in the forum, kind of messages, and moving that further up in the process so we can hash out any major issues before we even go through the whole BIP process. Because there's just a lot of nuance that we had to start dealing with in the BIPs, and it was just too much of a pain in the ass, really, to have the discussion in the forum chat and then, or in the forum messages, and then modify the BIP and yada, yada, yada. So let's at least engage with some people who seem to give a damn in the Discord channel to get some baseline of parameters, and then it'll still go through BIP, it'll still go through the vote. And that's one way of engaging closer with the community. And I think what we're going to do is work to try to make this more efficient, and also kind of bring together the community and the team a little bit more, by leveraging a more, I guess, powerful, if that's the right word, but deputized, I guess, council, so that they can more empowered council that has a clear mandate for what they're able to do, what they're supposed to be doing, but they engage closely with the team and help kind of bridge that gap from the team back to the community, so that it allows the team to, from all angles, to be able to work with them. And they're basically just supposed to be very informed community members that are getting paid to be very well informed, so they can kind of bridge that gap, give the feedback back to the team on kind of, okay, this is how the community kind of should feel about this, does feel about this, help engage in the RFFs, help engage in all the BIPs, drive the BIP process, making sure that the BIPs are kind of meeting the preset kind of criteria for what should be in the BIP, and then kind of ushering things along in the governance process, so that it's not just team to community. It's kind of offering like a nice middle ground to kind of push things through. So I don't know if Tritium, you're going to add a little bit there before then we can have a Lip hop in. We're good. All right, yeah, Lip, go for it. Well,
Did you want to say anything, Trinity? I just saw you come off mute.
I mean, I could, like the other side of governance that I've been getting more involved in since we got Governance 2.0 written, and it's just kind of waiting for the right time to like be voted on, is the on-chain side of this. So like actually almost everything that gets voted on, almost everything that we do in order to actually be at all meaningful, right, ends in some sort of an operation that happens on the blockchain. And like we're still kind of in a situation where like our dev multisig has, like a $500 million target on their back because there's like 3 or 4 people. I guess if you could get 3 of these people in a room and hold a gun to all of their heads, right, you could try to steal everyone's money. And that's obviously not good. I think also, like in what Lip has been talking about with the SEC is that like, in order to not have people be personally liable, right, we actually have to be decentralized, right? So it has to be the situation where there is nobody that's liable because the platform is truly decentralized. And so all of these things are also actually important and have been harder to figure out, right? So as we've been working more on like the multi-sig operations and how we structure that, like one of the things that's come up is that like the best way to move towards decentralization is to have some sort of a watchdog, right, that like either approves or has the opportunity to veto every transaction, right? And that watchdog needs to be like aware of Badger, understand the protocol, right, and be like technically competent enough to review these multi-sig transactions, right? And so that's also something that over, I think, the next 3 to 6 months is like a big thing at Badger. And so one of the things that I'm hoping is that we can get a council, right, where at least a number of the members have sufficient technical competence so that they can start to like be that watchdog, or maybe realize that we need it and like find other people to be that watchdog. But we are moving quickly towards a place where in order to like be the decentralized protocol that we aspire to be, and that frankly, like pretty soon we actually need to be, right? We really do need to get a competent like group of community members that can like watch things and figure out how to like build them into like our entire process.
Hey everyone, Lip here. Totally agree with a lot of the insights shared, and it's just such a wild ride where that you see a lot of the hype in the market around DAOs. But then as you take the plunge and get into it more, the reality of getting things done and the complexity involved is really tough, right? There's just so much innovation in the space, but you're also pushing so much innovation in how it operates, right? And everything that has to go in from a tech and ops point of view. So just a couple of things before we get a little more tactical too. I totally agree with just one of the most important things is that we have a common purpose, right? We all do believe in community. We believe in moving towards more decentralization, and recognize that it's a journey. It's not just like a light switch. And that really comes down to the type of people like Tritium and Jonto were talking about, people that have an ownership mindset, they're entrepreneurial, they're building to outcomes, they're collaborating together, they're taking risks and learning. If we act like that and we be genuine and try to help each other be successful, there's just so much opportunity to learn, to have fun, and to, of course, build your career, right? And to make some good money. And my journey is very similar to those of a lot of people that are on this call, and to Tritium and Jonto's, where I just, I got the bug, I saw a need, I started to build some value and collaborate with people towards outcomes. And then that just starts to get you on the path of doing that more and understanding it. And then things start to accelerate. I also totally agree that, the journey to decentralization and being transparent is hard, right? The majority of users don't necessarily want to grind on day-to-day operations and have to make tough decisions. They just want to get a better return on their assets and have some fun with the community. And that's totally cool. That being said, to become decentralized, it does take people getting organized together. It does take specialized skill across all aspects of business. And then when you throw in a super fast space that's filled with innovation, of course, that takes a certain type of person that enjoys that grind, enjoys learning, and then also, has a lot of other stuff often in their life going on. So I was like that. I was living a double life with my prior entrepreneurial venture and then moving more and more into this. And then it just kind of starts to flip, and I'm pumped to build and to continue to go on the ride. With that, some of the things that were shared with Tritium on people and how people get involved, it's not easy. And when I joined more closely within the group, there was a lot of things that were still messy. Like Jonto talked about how hard it was from a startup point of view, early days. Well, that's still the case, right? If we step back and think about where we're at in our journey, it is a classic startup challenge, right? Of how do you work on the business while you're in the business, layer in the innovation of a new way to help enable an organization that changes the game from a management point of view, and then look how fast the space and the tech is moving.
Yeah, it's like
You're
the
just living innovation.
Also.
And overall, it's really fun, right? Yeah, it's all good. It's really fun, and at the same time, it allows people to think about, maybe I have a piece of value, or I'm interested in learning more here. You can go big, you can go small. You do have that flexibility in how you want to contribute towards the common purpose of everyone in the community and in the overall ecosystem too. I do really believe in our community-driven mindset, our partnership-first approach, things that are thinking about the bigger picture and the greater good, not just our self-serving agenda. And I think that's very evident in the type of active community that we're building. But there's still a lot of work to do, right? When I look at some of the stuff that is in play, and Tritium, you were talking about it, as far as like people coming in and how you hire and how you move forward in building those types of things. Thankfully, there were some good BIPs, several months ago that funded the DAO from a people point of view for the year, right? But then we've also accelerated some hiring as the business needs grow, as people get more actively involved, that now we have to get better at then continuing to work with the community to get more funding and to help make better decisions. And I think it's absolutely incredible to see the requests for feedback, or the RFF channels, where there's certain ideas on how to solve a problem or an idea to drive growth, and then people are contributing actively when there's some actual structured thinking in there, and you're going early enough to get that feedback on debating all types of decisions. I just think that's really unique, really special for DAOs and for Badger, and we're going to continue to double down on it. So that's a few thoughts from my side.
I think like Will's still fighting with the hands. So yeah, he restarted. So I guess if you have anything, type in chat. Like we can take comments there and
Yeah, that's a good idea. Just take some questions in chat for sure.
Office hour discussion, yeah, just on Discord. If anybody's got any common suggestions. Uwe pointed out, so Uwe did a great bounty around a referral program, right? So we wanted to have a way that like people could refer people. And that is one of the problems with running so many bounties, right? And so now like we have this code to collect addresses, to like watch deposits, to like calculate everything, right? But then it's just, then building that integration part is tricky, right? And so that is, yeah, it's an interesting thing. And I think slowly as we bring more people into the core, then there's more people that have that understanding that can incorporate more of this stuff. But like, yeah, right now it is like we run more hackathons than we can actually, like we can look at them all. We can figure out what's good coded or not. We can keep some relationships open, but it's unfortunately we can't like roll everything in, like within a few days following the hackathon, or we get more work than we know what to do with sometimes. But that's great, right? Because then we've got people that are doing work and working with us. I think some people, and maybe Uwe can talk about this, a few people said it feels funny sometimes, I think, getting paid, like a few $1,000s for like some work that you did and then having it be like not used at all. But I mean, that's kind of just where we're at, and we hope to use it sometime. And for us, we see it more like, like when you, as a tech, when you do an interview, right? Like normally what happens is you send somebody a resume and there's this like weird, silly conversation. And then like the best company give you a code review. And very often, like it's like a bunch of work that you do for free in order to like maybe get a job, right? So the way I see it, we're turning it around. Like we don't do interviews, we don't do resumes. This is DeFi. Like we're basically, you can be a non, like we don't really give a shit who you are. right? But like, let's put out really challenging challenges, right? And pay people to do them. And then when we're looking for talent, like we already have a bunch of like completed code challenges with people that have had positive experiences with the DAO, right? And we can just say like, hey, you want to try to do this now? And like the entire like shitty process of like that whole hiring people thing, which I spent a lot of my life doing, is like, it's really different. It's nice this way.
I totally agree on that front. It's interesting because when you look at the classic interview process, even in big tech today, right? Like you look at the Google interview process and the types of questions that they ask you and the types of mental hoops you're supposed to jump through on the spot. And all of it is just theoretical. None of it's really applying directly towards the business impact that they're looking to do, right? It's just a fancy vetting process. In my mind, I just think that's so old school, right? If we just treat people with respect and be genuine and saying, hey, here are the things that we're trying to solve that align with some of your experience and skill set. Let's see what you got, right? And if they're actually willing to put in some effort, and it's not necessarily even just winning and crushing that outcome, but are they actually putting in effort to learn towards getting to that outcome and acting well and collaborating? That gives you such a good indicator of what they're going to be like and working with them, right? Like in anything in life, people can sell a story, but that could be bullshit versus the reality. And I think DeFi and what Badger is doing is so healthy that way, where you're giving people a genuine shot, right? And you can, like I said earlier, go deep, you can go light, it's all good. But I think it really is flipping the traditional hiring process on its head in a good way. And I just think it's a matter of time before even like some big tech starts to rethink some of that stuff, because I just think everyone's kind of sick and tired of the song and dance in traditional hiring processes. And then also just not giving people freedom and flexibility to build to outcomes how they want, when they want, as long as you're collaborating and learning and getting that with the team.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really interesting point. I hadn't thought about, like I do wonder about costs. So like we spend, I don't know, like, like lots of money on bounties, right? We probably, every one of these hackathons for the last like 2 or 3, we've spent like, well, the last 2 where we've done a lot, like we're spending $50,000-$100,000 every like 3 months, right? But then, which seems like a lot of money, but then actually when I think about like Google or like, like they pay a recruiter like 30% of a year's salary for like every person they hire, right? And I actually think if you were to factor in like the recruiting fees on the people that we've hired versus the money that we've spent just allowing people to engage with us and do work, right? We would actually find that it maybe is like even more cost effective. And it's just like important, more than cost. I think it's important, and particularly for this industry, which is new. But I don't know, it's cool. That's to me like some of the most exciting thing about this is, like just turning a lot of that, like how do you build and manage and like a technology team and a small team, how do you do this, and like it's totally different and it's really cool.
I agree. Like we don't have that type of insight yet on like data to talk about it, but I agree with you, Tridim, on the gut that time per hire, cost per hire, that type of stuff. If you actually look at the speed of what it takes for people in a more traditional sense to go through those hoops to land a role, that always takes a long time, right? And there's a bunch of red tape in between, et cetera. So if you look at the opportunity cost of actually empowering people to work on things that are really important for the business and to see if they can make it, I wonder, who kind of wins that race or what's more effective. So it's that balance, right, of organic attraction, building people towards outcomes and what you need to do versus like speed to hire or speed to getting things done. But I think it's like neck and neck. And in any way, I think that from a cultural point of view and building people to collaborate with you and, to learn together and build towards community, I think we're on the right path. I think this is more effective than a traditional mindset.
And we're running on time, but there's the one challenge that I still have in finding people, right? So this entire process that we're talking about is like very, very, very organic, right? You like plant seeds and some things grow, right? And some of them work, and it's kind of like you're organically growing. And like luckily, like in a lot of senses, like we've got enough growing, right? That like we can go harvest a lot of what we need, right? But there are places and situations where maybe like we need something that like we're not going to be able to organically grow ourselves, right? And the two things that like kind of come to mind. And like we have some, but like we always need more like really the best security people, right? We need more people on a review board reviewing contracts. We really need like, you know, like it would be great if we could find like the perfect like CSO who, you know, like chief security officer who is really going to be on top of all of this stuff without like slowing down a real high growth organization. But like that's very DeFi specific, very industry specific, right? There's maybe like 3 people in the world that would actually do that well. And then like on the other side, right, we're kind of more and more, as we become more of a software engineering team and less of like a roving band of mercenaries, right? Like there's this, and as a DAO that's trying to do a lot of things, right? I feel like there's a lack of product ownership. So like really every one of these products, like IBBTC should have an owner, right? There should be like the guy that owns IBBTC that's talking with the customers every day, that's checking in with the teams every day, that's writing the IBBTC report every week, right? And that's on top of that stuff. And like that also, right, you know, finding in my experience in tech, finding like good product managers is very hard. Right. And there's also a lot of like industry specific awareness, right? So to actually be good, you have to understand a little bit about how the programming works, and you have to understand like how the users work and how the ecosystem works. And then you also have to be like super pedantic and detail oriented and like in constantly collecting stuff and putting it together. That's a hard thing. I'm sure there's people out there, but that's a hard thing for like an organization like Badger and in like the you know, social and cultural place that we're in, right? Like that's a hard thing for us to figure out how to grow. And so if anybody has thoughts or ideas there, like please get in touch with me because I'm really interested in how we approach that one.
That's a tough one. I'm with you on it. And I don't think there's necessarily an easy solution, right? It's classic startup stuff where you want to be in a state in your mind that your mind's way further ahead in what the execution is. And being patient is hard, right? But if you can see movement in the right direction and you're working with a group of people that, you know, are working well together to get there, the grind is fun and you're going to build towards it. But that's in my mind, a classic startup thing, right? Working on the business at the same time as being in the business when everyone's wearing a ton of hats and the business needs exceed the capacity of everyone, you know, and that's the type of journey where I think we have a unique opportunity because like people listening to this call, everyone else involved in the community, the only thing holding you back from getting more involved is yourself.
Yeah, no,
and that's just a tremendous opportunity for people if they want to get after it.
I agree. And, you know, like, I think what we have identified with product managers, like eventually the best product managers I've ever met were devs, right? So they were like developers and then like there was nobody managing the product and their life sucked. And they said like, fuck this, it sucks. I'm going to just go do this so that it doesn't suck anymore, right? And so if nothing else, you know, like by 6 to 9 months from now, we will have hired enough devs and it will be a large enough software engineering organization that somebody will get fed up with it and make the move. But it'd be nice if we could like find somebody sooner.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm with you on that.
Cool. Well, I think we're at an hour now. So if anybody, I don't see any big questions. Vipe wants better videos. You know, man, like, so look, let me just throw this out there. And like, this is an urgent call for action, right? We have a Gitcoin thing running now. Last time we ran like an art bounty, which was very open and there was a lot of interest and we wanted people to do like art, like real art, like not like marketing art, right? But what we got was mostly still kind of like very artistic Badger marketing. And so like, I don't have time to try to figure that out again. I don't really have any time, but like, I would love to throw 10 to 20,000 Badger behind some people to like make some really cool animated trailers or somehow like do some cool art that tells the Badger story. But like this hackathon's running now. And in order to do that, I need to like put a clear scope up, right? So that then what we get isn't total garbage and like maybe we can use it so that then people also have the good experience of using what we use. So if anybody, like, contact me today if you think that you can put together an interesting bounty about people making some like cool media that then we actually would have something to do with or could use. I'm really trying to figure out how to pull that together. And then it's anyone else, anything else? I'm done talking now.
No, I guess we're good. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We hit the hour. Keep an eye on the chat for a little bit longer if you have any inspired questions. But I think the takeaway is if you want to get involved, get involved. There are a lot of opportunities out there. We're still growing, but I think we're in a much better spot for engaging with people and bringing on contributors, part-time project work, full-time than we were a while ago. So all very exciting, a lot of fun. So thanks everyone for joining, and we'll chat, I guess, again in 2 weeks.
Yeah, like
Thanks,
last little plug since you mentioned it, but like Gitcoin Grants Round 11 started yesterday. It's 3 weeks long. There's about $100,000 in Badger bounties, and there's like 12 or 13 of them, and maybe there will be another one coming up or two. So if you want to get involved, like now is the time, right? And then we probably won't do another batch of bounties for a month or two because we have to deal with everything that comes from this. So I think one of the reasons we're doing this is to say to everybody, like, if you want to get involved, go look in office hours discussions, go look at that link, see if there's an interesting bounty, and yeah, like get involved. Easy.
Yeah, and also contribute to Gitcoin. All the different grants that are out there. Poke around. Badger gives a decent chunk of money to Gitcoin each round. So if you want to help direct where that money gets spent, every little bit helps. A couple bucks here and there to different projects and grants.
It's just how many people donate, right? So like I mean, it's a waste of gas, but you can go donate like 1 cent or $1 to like 10 projects that you think are good. And if a lot of people do that, those projects will get a lot of money. So it's really not about you spending tons of cash. It's more about you signaling what you think is important.
Yeah, and I believe you can actually line up like a whole cart of a bunch of different contributions and then do it on some roll up or something like that. That makes it not as bad gas wise. So, spread it around. Like I said, a couple bucks to a bunch of different projects is an awesome way to contribute to get going and kind of make your voice get heard. And then, in some way it'll help Badger's money get directed in a way that Badgers want it directed. So highly recommend checking it out. Sweet. All right. Thanks everyone for hopping on. Thanks Tritium. Thanks Lep. Hope everyone has a great Thursday.